Welcome to the Better Together podcast, where we look for ways we can work together to advance the gospel of Jesus Christ. Today we have here Kendall Ross, but you may not know that he is the Associate Vice Chancellor at a university there in Arkansas, University of Arkansas, Fort Smith. So we're going to talk to him today about some of the different activities that he does. Some of you may know him from being on the D6 Family Ministries Board. Others of you, especially in Oklahoma, may know about him being on the Randall University Board. By the way, he's got 4 children and 3 grandchildren. So some of you may be actually in his family. He's a busy, busy man. But today we want to talk to him a bit about what it's been like to be in bivocational ministry for all these years. And so, Kendall, hey, thanks for joining us today, my friend.
Well, thank you, Dr. Moody. It's a pleasure to join you and just have a good conversation today.
Well, first off, I don't know how many people know you've got a degree in mechanical engineering, so that's pretty unusual for a average Free Baptist pastor. I see the Randall University degree, that makes sense, and then there's a master's degree there, and I think in leadership too from Randall. But let's just start out by what in the world, buddy? How did you end up as a mechanical engineer and then move from being a mechanical engineer into becoming a pastor?
Yeah, there's got to be God involved somewhere, right? Because
Yeah, absolutely.
it's,
And got to be a little interesting too.
absolutely. So I grew up in Muldrow, Oklahoma, which is just right across the border from Arkansas and Oklahoma. Went to school at the University of Oklahoma. I got my degree in mechanical engineering. I went to OU because I couldn't spell OSU, and so consequently, I came back to Fort Smith and I went to work at Rheem Manufacturing. I designed air conditioners and heating equipment. I did that for 4 or 5 years, and then I moved into management. But when we moved back to Fort Smith, we went to church at Kavanaugh Free Will Baptist. Carl Cheshire was the pastor. And after about a year or two, I kind of have a musical background. I played the trombone at the University of Oklahoma. I can't play a keyboard or a guitar to save my life, but Carl asked me to lead the music there at Kavanaugh after a year or two, and so I did that, led the choir and led music for a while. Um, I moved into management at Rheem. I started the commercial engineering manager and then later the residential air conditioning manager. And then Will Harmon came to pastor in 1997 and just really began to feel the call to ministry full time. And Will and I talked about how do we make that happen. And so I left Rheem Manufacturing as a residential air conditioning manager and went to work for Will Harmon. He created this title called Minister of Music and Church Development. In other words, anything Will didn't want to do, then I did it, right? And so that's the way I got into ministry full time.
Well, let's stop you there for just a minute, Kendall, because if people are acquainted with Will Harmon and the story of Kavanaugh,
Mhm.
they know what a giving church it is. We think about what they give to co-op, what they to the cooperative fund, what they give to the World Missions Offering, and they're just very generous. And so, what I hear is Will and Brother Carl; these guys are working with you, developing you. Will designed, he looked at your skill set, Pastor Will did, and really found something. And then it's like, I feel like I should be pastoring. And there you go. You become a full time pastor. Did you go straight to Ozark Free Will Baptist Church at that point?
So no, I didn't. I came to Kavanaugh and I worked full time doing music and church administration and see how did Will put it? Other miscellaneous duties unassigned. And so whatever needed to be done, I just did. I kind of helped oversee the child kindergarten program and the childcare events we had there. I was kind of an IT guy, so. As a mechanical engineer, I tried to take care of all the air conditioning equipment and things of that nature. You just kind of do everything that you possibly can, and then we'll continue to invest in all of us on staff. And I began the opportunity to preach occasionally, and then after I'd been there almost 9 or 10 years with Will full time. I felt the call to pastor full time, and that's when I left and went to Ozark
Mm.
almost 10 years after I'd been full time with Will.
Wow. And so you're there, you're a full-time pastor, and you're kind of trugging along. But I look and I see, okay, yeah, I see you at Ozark, but now I also see you're at the University of Arkansas in Fort Smith. How did you end up pastoring? How did you end up becoming a bivocational pastor?
It has a lot to do with the demographics of the Ozark Church and Ozark in general. If you look at the poverty rate in Ozark, it's right at 22%. The national poverty rate's around 12.5%. So we minister to a lot of people that are just struggling to make ends meet. So when I came to pastor, um, clearly didn't look at all those things. God didn't really say, hey, make sure you know where you're going. God just said, go to Ozark. And I said, okay, I'll go. And so when we got here, I did go full time. I'm probably not the person that you want to ask financial advice to because I went from the engineering world and took a 50% salary cut in pay to go to Kavanaugh, which was very great. And then I went from Kavanaugh to Ozark and took another 50% cut in pay. Just,
Yeah.
that's not exactly the route that people tend to go. But I had been here probably 6 or 7 years, and it became really obvious that the church couldn't financially support a full-time pastor. As much as we would love for that to happen, it really couldn't happen. I had, in the meantime, had gone back to Randall and got my degree, and then gone to Randall and finished my master's degree. And so I started teaching at Arkansas Tech University here in Ozark and just anything that they would let me teach. So I have that mechanical background, so I taught heating and air conditioning, but I also taught workplace behavior and ethics. I taught organizational leadership because that gave me an opportunity to really connect with the local community. And then I finally I sat down with the board and said, we really need to consider a bivocational approach here. And I think at first they were not super excited about that, but as you step back and you look at it really for financial stability for me and for financial stability for the church, it was really important that we do that.
So you're over there, you've got four kids, and we look at your financial trajectory. Instead of it going up, as most people, your earning potential was going down. And I think sometimes leaders look and church people look and say, oh, our guy is bivocational, and think it's somehow a second class. But your guys, after they kind of looked at it, they began to understand it gave you personally stability, your family, but it gave the church stability. And
Yeah.
it sounds like you were already starting to impact the community. And so, how is it you end up at University of Arkansas Fort Smith, and that really brought stability?
Yeah. In 2018, I guess it was October of 2018, by then I'm 52 years old and I recognize I need a full-time job. And that's, when you're in your early 50s, you really don't want to be looking for a full-time job. But I do have a degree in mechanical engineering and then I have a master's. So a university fit is worked out really well. I interviewed several different positions. I interviewed at Arkansas Tech University and University of Arkansas Fort Smith. I was already teaching there as an adjunct instructor, and they had a visiting position that came available. It was a 6-month visiting position. And so I decided I'll give that a try. It kind of felt like the Lord was pushing me that way. I spoke with my board and I said, we want to give this a 6-month try. I mean, that's all my contract's going to be good for. Let's see what happens here and let's just kind of trust the Lord here. And so that's kind of how I landed up at the University of Arkansas Fort Smith.
So you're there, they're starting to get to know you. And after this 6 months, they're like, we don't really want this guy to go away, do we? We want him to help us out with some of the economic issues in our community and all the rest of it. And so you move from that. Did they have another opening for associate vice chancellor there?
Yeah, this just has God written all over it. God has really blessed us as I've made my traverse through the university. After a few months of being at the university, the man that I worked for decided he needed to retire. And so when I retired, I interviewed for his position and took his position as director of the Center for Business and Professional Development. And at the same time, we got a new chancellor. Chancellor Riley came in 2019, and so she and I had a lot of great one-on-one conversations. At that time, I was working for the dean of the College of Applied Science and Technology. After a couple of years, the chancellor decided to create a new Center for Economic Development, and so she allowed me to go develop a new workplace. I went to downtown Fort Smith. I took a 100-year-old building and redesigned it to be a center for economic development where we help people start small businesses, sustain small businesses. And I got to design the whole thing. It was great because my mechanical engineering background was really good. And then opportunities just continue to open. I became the executive director of the Center for Economic Development. And then about a year ago, had opportunity to go to work directly for the chancellor as an associate vice chancellor of economic and workforce development. So it is clearly it is a God thing every step of the way. God opened doors, and I just took the opportunities that were given to me.
That's wonderful, Kendall. So as you kind of look back, and I from a distance can look and see, boy, God surely fearfully and wonderfully made you. So you think about that mechanical engineering. You didn't go into that to make money, obviously, because you didn't make money with that degree for a long time, but you had that desire, you had that skill set. And then it turns in the love for the community, the whole economic development. What a big deal that is for that university and the greater community. And it continued on so that you end up having an impact on this university and this community. But before we do that, I know a lot of our listeners are saying, but what about the church? What about the church? Things went well for the church too, didn't they? So tell us all while this is happening, as you're moving through this process, what's happening with Ozark Free Will Baptist Church?
Well, I appreciate you asking that. I mean, in a couple of weeks, I will have been here 16 years. So the longest tenured pastor at Ozark Church. We began in 1966, and I think I'm the seventh or eighth pastor. So the church has done a really good job of retaining pastors throughout the years. The church is obviously ups and downs since we've been here. Really, really strong in 2016 and 17, and then a really difficult time in 2018 when I recognized that I needed to go full time. It's a difficult transition for the church. I think I was the second full-time pastor that the church had ever had, and honestly, we probably couldn't afford the first one. So it was one of those things where we really wanted to, but we just didn't have the membership to do that. We didn't have the financial resources to do it, and yet today God has really blessed the church. We have a lot of leaders that have stepped up. We have one of the strongest, well, by far the strongest food pantry in Franklin County, serving thousands of individuals every month. We have great women's and men's programs. Sunday school is okay. We've got a great community program, a community group that meets every Sunday evening or most Sunday evenings. And so we're really thankful that God is blessing us there. I mean, the church is we have a lot of retired people in our church, like most Free Will Baptists, but we're also beginning to see a lot of younger couples come, and that's been really refreshing to see that. Also in Ozark, we have a Youth with a Mission program. So there's a Youth with a Mission camp here in Ozark. We have a lot of missionaries through Youth with a Mission that are a part of our church and very involved in our church.
And it feels like there's a lot of people that I don't know if they're volunteers, but they're highly involved. And I don't know if that's because of the bivocational aspect or, that they know people need to step up, but it just sit from a distance. It looks like there's a lot of people involved in the ministry there at Ozark.
I think we have a really large number of volunteers, which is really great. I think one of the things that's, I think, a struggle for me is I told the church when we decided to do this is pastoral care is going to be the area that I'm going to struggle with most. I mean, I think for me personally, going to this bivocational status probably has deepened me from a spiritual maturity level, if that makes any sense at all. I have to be better at time management. I have to be better at my study. I have to be better and more focused with my family. And those, I mean, let's face it, those are all difficult things. And I have that internal struggle always. Am I spending enough time with my family? Am I spending enough time with my church? Am I spending enough time at work? I mean, all of those things are still struggles. But we have some volunteers that have stepped up, and I would love to say that 50% of the church is volunteering, but the truth is it's a good 10% or maybe 15% that's volunteering. But we've seen people from the community step into our food pantry. They see everything that's happening. My wife leads the food pantry and just does a great job at that. And I think they see that. And so the community has really stepped up and really involved in feeding the local people.
It feels a little bit like that there's overlap there. So a lot of concern with the economic development of that area. And then lo and behold, you've got the poverty you mentioned, 22%, and the church has got the probably the most active food pantry in your area, in your county.
Sure.
So it kind of looks from a distance, Kendall, like the church and the stuff, the skill set, the university, all that's kind of working together to advance the kingdom.
I think that's true. In my job as an associate vice chancellor, I'm involved in the economic performance and economic indicators of the state, honestly. I'm required to write a report quarterly about what's happening in 4 different areas of our state. And it makes me open my eyes, I think, to what's happening specifically in the Ozark community and Franklin County. This poverty rate is difficult. The labor force participation rate is not good in Arkansas. So there's a lot of things that we can do to help people that are unemployed or maybe underemployed and advance them to the next level. And the truth is the church is a huge part of that. The church is a stable part of the community where people can come and be fed. I think that's I don't mean just physically, but I mean spiritually as well. People can come and they're going to get a good dose of Bible teaching and community while they're there. And I think that's what sustains them throughout the week. God is just working in people's lives.
And so when we work with churches, we encourage them to do something like a needs assessment, which
Yeah.
is really what you've done in your area, and to look at the hurt needs. Jesus did that,
Hmm.
feeding people and all the rest. And it gives you the opportunity to reach people with the gospel. And we can see that really happening through the church. What's different because at University of Arkansas, Fort Smith, because Kendall Ross is there. And so you're going into an environment that is more secular. So what kind of impact do you sense you've been able to make in that particular setting?
I love the way God opens those opportunities and those doors. We had a family that donated a large sum of money that came to our Center for Economic Development. We named a room after them. And the chancellor immediately asked me, would you open our dinner with prayer? And
Mm.
so every time there's an opportunity, she will say, my minister is going to pray for us today. Now, she doesn't attend our church, but I have these great opportunities to help direct a secular university in good moral decisions. And so for me, it's just opened up the door to minister at a whole different location. 4,500 students, almost 600 employees. Every opportunity I get to share the gospel, some would say in a hidden manner, that's fine. I share it every chance I get.
Mm-hmm. And so you could look and say, well, what if Kendall wasn't there? And what a difference, taking that salt, taking that light out of that community. It's not that it would be a bad community, but there is a difference in that university because you're there. What a wonderful thing. Well,
I'm thrilled that God has given me this opportunity. It has been it's a joy. It's been a great ride. It really has.
so A lot we could learn from you, Kendall. You alluded to it a little bit, how every minute really counts. You're thinking about the church, you're thinking about your family, you're thinking about the university. I think the overall takeaway from this is that something that sometimes people think of as bad, the church may have been initially disappointed that, the full time was not working out. It sure did turn out into something good, didn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's clear that God takes those things that are sometimes considered difficult or bad, and God turns it for our good, right? I mean, we believe that, and God has certainly done that here, not only for me, but for our family and for the church. God has just been gracious to us.
That's great. Well, I want to thank you for what you're doing, my friend. Thank you for your investment in the denomination. So, we just talked about what you're doing as a pastor, what you're doing in the workplace at the university, but we also started. Hey, he's on the D6 family board, helping serve the denomination, and on the Randall University board. So, helping with Christian education, not to mention helping raise, I suspect, some of those grandchildren a little bit. What a job, and we just thank you for letting God use you in this wonderful way.
Well, I appreciate the time today. Honestly, it is just a God thing. I'm thankful that God has allowed me to do this, and hope He allows me to continue to do it for a while longer. It'd be
That's
great.
great. I hope so too. Well, we want to thank you all for taking the time to join us today. Please take this podcast, share it with someone that you think would benefit from it. Remember, every little thing we do, it really does count. It really does make a difference. When we all come together and we all work together, we are better together. Thank you for being with us today.